Hello and welcome to Perspectives. Welcome back to Perspectives. I'm David Schoneman. I'm your host here, and we're glad to have you back. We've been talking a lot over the last few weeks about the fallout or the result of the 2024 elections and Trump's second term, and we've been focused on the first 100 days, and things were happening fast and furious, and they still are. But we're kind of moving into a new phase now where all these executive orders and a lot of action was taken. We've been waiting to see what the results are going to be, and the results are starting to come in. We're starting to see some of the effects of the policies that Trump wanted to bring back, really reversing so much of the damage that was done by during the Biden era and his Democrat friends there who were just, in my opinion, making America bad again. But Trump's back to make America great again, and we're going to talk today about some of the things that have been developing. I'm in the studio once again with Greg Faith, a friend of mine. Dave Narkunis has been here in the past. He's not able to make it today, which is unfortunate, but Greg and I will pick up and try to talk about some of the things that are of interest to you, I think, as we're looking at now post 100 days of the second Trump administration. Greg, thanks for coming in.
Pleasure to come back.
All righty. So Trump has been in now since he got elected, of course, last November.
That's correct.
And was sworn in January, and now we're past the 100-day mark.
Oh, boy.
A lot of the networks and whatnot, we're looking forward to the 100 days. We've been talking about it, through the various weeks, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks into it, and now we're past the 100 days. And now we're starting to see some of the effects.
Yeah.
And especially, let's start with tariffs. What's going on with tariffs? We saw, Trump held the scorecard up basically saying what the tariffs used to be and what he wants to do. And he was imposing some big tariffs and a lot of hand-wringing. Among some of the fearful leftists, here in the country. I don't think among the conservatives, certainly not among his supporters, not a lot of hand-wringing.
The rhinos are like, oh boy.
What's going to happen now? Yeah, they're fearful. And certainly some hand-wringing in some of the foreign countries. But the hand-wringing has translated into action. And we've seen a couple of things here that I think are important. One is we had a deal with the UK, right? There's something has happened with the UK, and now both sides are anticipating a good future.
Well, they're playing that lovey-dovey. We're on the honeymoon portion right now until we start seeing trade going both ways.
Right.
And our vehicles and our products, and we start seeing a little bit more of their exports to us, which I'm still questioning what they can export to us. France has a lot to offer: wine, cheese.
Sure.
Britain, I don't know.
Well,
a little bit more homework will be necessary there.
Yeah, they got cars and they've got some technology, but you're right. It's
jokes, comedians.
Yeah.
TV programs, but
right, they got TV programs.
That weird sense of humor they have. But not dentistry. I won't say that there.
But China is the big news, too.
Oh, boy.
And when Trump held up that chart, that scorecard on China, it was clear that China was charging us big tariffs, and we were charging them very small tariffs. It's like we were their benefactor. We seemed to be helping them out. We made them into most favored nation. We helped them become more of a superpower. And I think one of the lessons that we learned, and Trump has probably learned it and known it for a long time, is that China's not our friend.
Well, I look at it a little bit different in a way, because being my age, I remember Mao and I remember the things that went on, and I keep thinking to myself, they know we're still the sleeping bear, just like the Japanese have. But we learned a lesson by selling Japanese our steel, and it came back at us in the form of ships and aircraft and bullets. Today, we're doing the exact same thing all over again with China. They have cities built. There's no occupancy at all. In the 90s and 2000s, they were building these massive cities in the middle of nowhere and expecting the masses to be able to afford to live there. And yet now they're decrepit, they're falling apart because they weren't really put together that well in the first place.
Well, I've spent some time in China, and I tell you what, the stuff's not put together very well.
And yet we're still bringing it over here and end up on our landfills.
Yeah, well, we know from a lot of the things that we import, there's a lot of junk that comes over. Our iPhones, those I understand are made over there, but there's a lot of junk that comes over. And we pay high tariffs. We were paying high tariffs to send our stuff over there. We were charging them very little, and they had a very favorable trade balance with us, and it affected our debt, and not a good situation. No. Trump held up the scorecard, and he said, this is a problem. We got to fix it, and he increased the tariffs.
Yes.
And China thought they could still steer the ship. The tail could still wag the dog, and so they raised their tariffs, and Trump raised them again, and they raised theirs. We raised them, and we say, hey, we don't need the Chinese stuff. But there was a meeting in Switzerland recently, and there's a 90-day trial period now with new tariffs.
Yeah, correct. 10% and 30%.
How much?
10% for them towards us.
Meaning they're going to charge us 10% or put 10% tariff duty on the things that we're sending to them, and we're putting 30% on things they're sending to us. And it used to be kind of the other way around.
Yeah, and that's where the unfairness was for all these decades. It was high tariff on our part. We couldn't get our automobiles. You would never see an American vehicle anywhere near a city in China.
Right.
And of course that hurts us because we like to get those vehicles out there because that's what pretty much sets up this country as far as we don't need their steel. We have our own production. They almost killed our steel industry, our aluminum industry. It was almost at its death door. And finally, thank God he got reelected, or at least this time around. He can now the guy's got all the cards. If it's the chessboard, he's got all the pieces in his area. He's playing 3 or 4 steps ahead of the Chinese, and it's got a lot of people upset because how do you defend being taken advantage of? It's hard to comprehend on anybody with common sense says, you're taking advantage of me.
Right.
Well,
I think that somehow after World War II, we decided that we were going to become the benefactor. We won, we had wealth, and we began probably paying too much money for some of these things that we were importing, sending money overseas because we were sharing our prosperity.
That makes sense.
And that's fine if we're sharing our prosperity, but we've shared our prosperity to the point where we have $36 trillion of debt. And that's not sustainable. We cannot do that anymore.
No.
And all these countries have risen up in those 50, 60, 70 years, whatever it is since World War II ended, that all these decades, they've now risen up and they're doing pretty well. China certainly being a case in point.
They're more modern than we are. Singapore, you go to some of these Asian countries and you go, wow, holy cow. And I went to one place where I thought I was living in the 22nd century just by looking at the skyline. And yet we have Detroit, Chicago, some of Philadelphia, Baltimore, these areas where it's embarrassing. Where in Singapore, it's against the law to litter. Japan is spotless. You go on their rail, you ain't going to find a trash dump. And it's just, they have pride in cleanliness and in organized. We don't have that here.
Well, it's certainly missing from our metro areas, our Democrat-controlled metro areas.
And I was so happy you said that because to get off subject a little bit, we have to get rid of these Democrat leaders because they're not leading.
No. They're
destroying.
They're destroying. And that's what we said in the opening segment about Biden. Really, Biden was making America weak, and that was his goal. And he was certainly joined in that by many of the Democrat leaders we see on the news periodically, Schumer and Pelosi and all those folks.
Well, Schiff's got something coming to him, so we'll put the spotlight on that gentleman for just a few seconds here. He's in trouble.
Yeah.
Well, they're starting to now come up that this man lied all his career.
He
sat there and lied in front of Congress during the impeachment process. Here's all the things I've got proof of. Well, now it's time to cough him up.
I know. He can't do it.
All these lies are now catching him.
Yeah.
And sanctions and all these other things. And eventually he's going to get deposed and kicked out of committees because just the other day he's babbling about something with Jim Jordan, and Jim Jordan's like, I'm not playing into that, son. I'm not going to play into your grandstanding, your gaslighting, whatever you're trying to accomplish. We're here for this. Shut up. And they do it. They're not like the British where you can sit there and bang on your stick and be yelling at each other. We have a decorum. And sometimes I really wish we didn't have decorum.
Well, I hope that he gets his comeuppance. I think there's really no place. And I think it's the tolerance that we've had for the lies and deceit and the deception that Schiff and others have been peddling.
And the mass media was helping them right out.
Helping them right out. Let's go back to tariffs, though. So now we got a deal with China. We're going to see how it goes for 90 days. I understand that the tariffs that we've been imposing, that Trump has imposed, are already generating revenues to the coffers.
Yes,
That's
they are.
saving us money. Now we got a long ways to go to make up for trillions, but they are saving billions, or making billions.
Bringing us in, the Treasury now has another source of income.
Yeah.
Now let's just hope that everybody in government goes, okay, it's not your playground, it's not your money.
That's right.
Let's put it into the debt.
Let's pay down the debt. Let's pay down.
But I ain't got all my life to live to wait for it to happen. So we need to get more and more and more. And like he was saying, the big green, big beautiful bill is going through right now, but we may have to pause certain benefits that we're going to make out of it with some of these promises. But Congress has been tasked.
Yep.
And the tariff is what's going to help get us no taxes on Social Security, no taxes on overtime.
I'd love to see taxes on Social Security go away.
I'm running for office.
Social Security.
I'm running for office to help that through.
Well, I sure hope that you and others who are running on that will succeed, because
we've got to.
It's not a ton of money. Anyone who's on Social Security knows that it's not a lot of money.
And I didn't ever think that I was going to have it, because
I didn't think I was going to have it either.
I had a bunch of money put away and it's gone. And it vaporized overnight, and I never got bailed out. But I can name companies right now that go from airplanes down to cars that got bailed out with my money. I'd like a piece of that money back. And I think with this Doge rebate, that's just a little bit of a sugar to go on the top of a cookie, but I want the whole cake. And it was more and more Americans are retiring. I'm born in '57, so the baby boomer era is starting to get a little bit past me, but 50,000 Americans are retiring on, don't quote me, but on a weekly basis. That's a lot of people every week going off the payroll into the Social Security system or Medicare system or whatnot. And then all the early retirees, I went at 62 because I have families with disabilities, and I was trying to make sure they got some form of coverage in case I drop dead, that they can be covered under my survivor benefits. And a lot of people out there today are still using that, but with Doge and what they have been doing, finding out that people aren't even born yet are getting unemployment.
Yeah, I know. It's. I think they've done a lot of work there too, and that's good to see. We're seeing some of the results. We're saving a lot of money there.
And the tariffs is part of this puzzle. That's the part is in place. There's no, you can't undo this now. He's trying to get it now, where when Elon leaves, somebody else is going to take his place to continue it on. And my goal is to have every state have its own Doge program.
Well, we can certainly use it here in New Hampshire.
We're going to get it.
Bring the Doge to Nashua.
We're going to get it.
I saw a headline, the other day in the paper about the town, or the parties are not releasing any details on the teacher's contract, and the school department has come out and said, the 3.5% or 2%, whatever the percentage is, I don't know what the percentage is, saying that's insufficient. We need more money. We got, like we talked about last time, I think, our schools are doing poorly and they just want more money. So bring in the Doge to New Hampshire, bring in the Doge to Nashua, and I think we'd see some benefit. And taxpayers at home would save some money, because the amount of money that's being wasted in a Democrat-controlled city is pretty high. And I think all you got to do is peel the onion back a little bit, and you're going to see there's a lot.
And we didn't have that much snow removal this year, so that money's still in there. Wonderful.
Well, it's going to be spent. All the money's always spent. Let's talk a little bit about investment into America. Investment into America is big too, and Trump right now is in Saudi Arabia. He's in the Middle East. He's, I'm sure going to be dealing with or talking about the war with Israel and Gaza and all that. But he's also drumming up some investment, and I think that maybe there's some progress in Saudi Arabia. They certainly have plenty of money, and if they can start investing here, then anyone who invests here for manufacturing is not subject to the tariffs.
They have the dividend, so it comes right to them.
Right. So that's the way to do it. So we'll see what Trump comes home. How long is he going to be over there? Do you know?
Well, he's going to be there just a few more days, and he's going to be on back. But the thing is, Qatar has given him a plane, a 747 stretch. The DOD's, he's like, but now the left's, again, the left is having a fit because this Boeing Air Force One -2, which something odd $4 billion now is 1.2, or he's like, you know what, I'm tired of waiting. I can go over and get this plane. We can modify it a little bit for non-important or tactical reasons. It doesn't need to have all that secret weaponry or whatnot that the Air Force One has. We'll just use it around the country. Let's go ahead and use it.
Well, I'm a little. I'd be very careful because an airplane is big with a lot of wires and a lot of components.
Things can go wrong.
And there's a lot of stuff can go wrong.
A parachute, and he's out the door.
And I just hope that whoever is in charge of looking that thing over thoroughly looks it over real thoroughly.
You can bet it's going to sit on the ground for several months.
And make sure that there's no issues in there, nothing hidden in there that shouldn't be, no microphones, no cameras, no explosives, no whatever.
That goes back to when we were putting these Russian embassies up, that the building's just loaded with spy equipment. So I'm with you on this. I prefer to just say thanks, but we'll give it we may use it for first aid, some other reason, but for catastrophes
not a presidential plane. If the old one still works, maybe I can keep on using it. I'm not sure. What's wrong with the old one?
Well, they're 30 years old. Their airframe is, anything over 30, you start to talk about serious money every month. It costs around, I think the latest numbers I saw was close to $137,000 an hour.
Oh, really?
An hour, that thing? Because of all the things that's needed to keep those machines working.
Wow.
I always say, fly commercial air and, put enough air marshals on it, or it could be done a different way, but you can't walk. And we knew about that during World War II.
Yeah.
He was flying around a B-17. It was unmarked.
Got
in, got out, did what he had to do to get back to the United States.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens. I'm looking forward to hearing news out of his trip. I'm sure while he's over there, he's going to be talking about the war, too. And some interesting news there. We got the last living American hostage, and it's someone who has a dual citizenship.
That's correct.
American and Israeli. I understand he was in the Israeli military.
He was in the IDF.
The IDF, Israeli Defense Forces.
I'm shocked because his family, of course, is by reports. You got to watch out who you get your information from. But they thought he was dead, had already buried him in a sense in their minds. Now, being told he's alive and he's there, and they spoke with him, and now they're just tickled pink. It's when he comes home, and if he wants to come back to the United States to live, or he's going to stay in Israel to reside, it's his decision. But I'm glad that we finally have the last American now. Of all the people that are still there, let them go. It'd be
you gotta let him
Hamas
go.
To let him go.
It would. Now I did see a news article too that it showed Benjamin Netanyahu in his military. It's got the helmet on. He had the flak vest on. And he says, that we're beginning our latest push or our last push. We're going to finish this thing off. And he has to. Israel has to. I think this two-state notion, it
was a pipe dream.
Yeah, it's a pipe dream, and I think no one thinks there's a two-state solution any longer. I think Palestinians don't think so. Certainly Israel doesn't think so. I don't think so. I don't think anyone with the right mind would think that there's a two-state possibility here. The question is, what state's it going to be?
Well, the problem is, as you say, what state's it going to be? But Hamas, the Palestinians, I feel for those folks, because this goes back thousands of years, that the Promised Land and the Holy Land, and the idea that Gaza was created for peaceful reasons, and yet for 30 years the enemy was digging these tunnels.
That's right.
And they were taking people and snagging them and using them as hostages. The American government was giving them concrete.
Yeah.
And it's like,
we kept on thinking that somehow if we're nice enough to them, they're going to change their ways. And that's not going to happen.
No.
That's not going to happen. That's why I think we realize there's no longer any two-state solution. I remember some of the Democrats during Biden's era, maybe it was earlier, they were saying, all those guys want is a good job. Come on, they just want a good job.
They need a hug.
Yeah, they need a hug. Well, no, they don't. They need to maybe hug a 500-pounder.
Bunker busters and deep well, this and that and the other thing.
We don't want to joke about it, but it's true. And this is, I think Netanyahu is going to finish off Hamas, and I think that's what has to happen. He certainly has targeted some of the individual leaders.
Oh, yeah, and go for leaders. Cut them. You cut the snake's head off. Yeah. Two will grow back, but at least you're able to cut that one off and martyrdom them. Yeah. And hopefully the youngers won't be corrupted by the elderly, and this tit for tat will keep going on, but it ain't our war.
Well, what I saw too is that Israel was going to go in and take over all of Gaza.
It's done. That's a done deal.
That's a done deal. So it's
go right to the ocean. They're just going to bulldoze
Israel.
it all down.
So they're going to, or they already have.
Well, they've made plans to start bulldozing once the fighting stops and shooting stops, because it doesn't seem right to bring a contractor in and have snipers in every doorway and window. They're just going to bury everything and start all over again.
Well, that's the way to do it.
You put these people out in the desert or in care camps or however you handle them.
Well, I think they should go to some of these other countries.
I think Egypt's a perfect place, right across the Suez
Egypt's a good
Canal.
place. I think Saudi could be a good place. All these other countries. Iran would be a good place.
I would even go for Somalia.
Go for Somalia.
Here you go. Let's be the stick in the side of you people.
Yeah.
Because we finally made peace with Houthis. The Navy was just going in there and making them days miserable. But it was all military, all precise, exactly. These 36 people here, that's all PR stuff. That's the propaganda that the left wants you to hear to put something against Trump. And it's not going to happen, because the military had these F-18s and these new weapons that we have are pinpoint accuracy. If you got a guy on the ground and he's guiding that bomb in, and he knows that the bad guy's there, and they really try to prove that the bad guy's there through observation and intelligence. They're not just going to willy-nilly, because it's bit them in the ass before. Pardon my French.
They have to confirm the target. There's no doubt about that.
Confirm and then destroy.
Yes.
And hats off to every one of them, because they're true patriots.
Yep. Those missiles that we use, though, they're very expensive.
Yes, sir. They are.
And I did see an article too where it talked about the $30,000 drone that the little Iranian drone that's a suicide drone. There's no one on board, but it comes in and it carries a bomb, and we're shooting a $30,000 drone down with a couple of $2 million missiles each. So we're spending $4 million to take out $30,000.
That's one of those things where you kind of go, as a bean counter, you're like, well, how many we got in the warehouse? All right, how many we got being in the production line? And then, of course, all the people that are against the military-industrial complex are counting their rosary beads. It's like, I got them in the warehouse. I got to use them. Yeah. Because these things don't last forever. There's not a time clock on them, but they can only sit in ordnance for so long before we have to sell them to somebody else. And that's what Ukraine gave us the opportunity to do, is to empty out our howitzer. If you know the story behind the howitzers, we were selling them by the thousands and thousands and thousands. All of a sudden we realized, oops, now we've sold out all of our howitzer rounds. And then,
we can make some more, I guess.
Oh, they're making them 724 right now.
Oh,
Trust me, they're making them as fast as they can get them out of the foundry and stamp them and weaponize them and put them in storage.
Right. So we have other conflict areas too. We mentioned Ukraine here and Russia, and I understand that Zelensky is going to have a face-to-face with Putin.
Yes, sir. And
when is that going to happen?
I'm not sure when, but they're still talking.
Yeah.
They're going to get.
That's going to be interesting.
Springtime, so it's not. They want to turn the war back on. Now's the time to do it over there. And these farmers are just dying to get out there and get their grains going. And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't want any seed item from Ukraine for the next 30 years. That ground out there is just polluted so bad. All that it's going to take forever to get all that metal out of there and all that toxic material. And if you grow something there, it's going to get right up in the root system, into the fruit, into the food, into the vegetables. So that's dead to us as far as I'm concerned.
Well, we have plenty of wheat here in this country.
Yeah, you got all that stuff here.
I think we can grow wheat here. We got corn.
Let's hope for good weather.
I read something about sorghum too.
Yeah.
As
sorghum,
a grain
soybean.
It's an old, ancient kind of a grain that has a lot of value, and we can grow that here too.
A lot of hemp.
And hemp?
Ooh, there's a lot of things in hemp. Henry Ford and the guy who, right now, the peanut guy, they were working on hemp seriously for insulation for automobiles. George Washington Carver, he wanted to really get that in there, but government got involved and said, you can't do hemp for other reasons. But yeah, there's a lot of things out there now that the economy can absorb, and again, goes back to growing it and having the proper weather.
Growing and having the proper weather, and we can produce this stuff here. I want to see this. I want to see this produced here.
A country can grow We've
can
got a
grow.
lot of land out there that's
Yep.
just sitting there
Yep.
fallow. They're
Yep.
paying people not to grow, and that's ridiculous.
Well, I think we're also paying people to grow corn that ends up in ethanol, and
that's
I don't
not
like
right.
that. Stuff's not good for a motor. Not good.
No,
for,
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Not good for
flex fuel.
Not good for our cars. It's not good for the mileage. It's good for the farmers, but we have to find maybe they
make
can grow
politicians
something else that
money.
we have
We-
would be a better cash crop. Maybe take out
Water.
some of this corn and grow sorghum if that's the thing we got to do. We'll see how all that develops. But there was also hostilities brewing between India and Pakistan,
Yeah, well,
and Trump stepped in there too.
he did. I don't know how he did it, but he managed to get a ceasefire, and of course he's always saying, "You people got nukes, and we see one low yield. That's all bets are off." You know, because these people, they argue about the smallest little things in a place where who the hell wants to live there? Because it's so mountainous, or it's so hard to get to, or the people are so, I'm going to say backwood or backwater, but look at the geography of the place. There's nothing there, and yet you're fighting over this traditional tit for tat for tit for tat for tit for tat.
Yeah,
And if you can't grow up and play with the big boys, we want your weapons.
yeah.
That's my opinion.
Well, Trump
And the
did
United
something
Nations
there.
is not doing a thing. I haven't heard anybody in the United
No,
Nations.
no. I think the United
Yeah.
Nations thrives on conflict.
Conflict, yeah.
They like conflict. United Nations likes conflict. They foster it. They take steps to encourage it, if not in this generation, in the next generation.
Look at Israel. Well, that was-
Yeah, exactly. So I think the United Nations is out of the game.
Kick them out. I like to see them in Israel.
Yeah.
I like to see them right there in Bethlehem, or it just, okay, now this is a place to be.
Yeah, I don't
Get out
think
of
we
the
need
United
to.
States. The police would love to have that place turned into a dog park. They would really, really like it because of all these people coming in with all these immunities, transferring, transporting, whatever, causing all the traffic jams that they do. New York City is the stupidest place to put the UN in the first place, in my opinion. But
Yeah, well,
Middle of
if
nowhere.
they could shut that down, I think that'd be a benefit to everybody. Maybe
on
not
it.
to the people that are on the take in that
we don't want
organization.
We don't want to have them do something else. Heaven forbid.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Sorry, you got
Yeah,
me
exactly.
laughing on that one.
So this is what's been going on. Trump has been in office now over 100 days, and we're seeing the effect. And I think maybe we can call that the Trump effect. But we have his involvement in the Pakistan-India
He got him to stop
conflict that
shooting.
seems to be calming down. He's in Saudi Arabia,
Bringing in
stumping
some
for investment
investments.
to come back to the States. We've seen progress on the tariffs. I think people, there's, like we said earlier, a lot of hand-wringing, especially over China, but we're seeing some benefit there. We'll see how it goes for these 90 days. And we're seeing this last living American hostage who
Finally.
thanked Trump for getting him out of there. His family, of course, is glad, and we'll see what happens with that conflict too. So we're seeing the effects, and the effects, I think, overall are good. I'm still waiting for the stock market to come back up.
Yeah, look what it's done.
But it will.
It's back to like the 42, 43.
Yeah, 42, 43 realm, and it was
I'm not
down
invested
certainly
in it.
lower than that.
No dog in that fight, but
It's coming back up. We want to see these things are cyclical anyway,
Oh, yeah.
but it's starting to come back, and I think we're going to see big numbers there too as time goes
I
on.
just think it's embarrassing for the left to go, well, that's the worst 100 days. What? Yeah, shut up.
Yeah, well, I think the American voter is saying to all those Democrats, just pipe down,
Yeah.
take a seat, zip it.
Bernie
And,
and Bernie and AOC are out there just flying around those little private jets.
Yeah,
Embarrassing.
for them. I think it's embarrassing for America too, and I think
And that's
most of the
the worst
voters
part.
don't want to be embarrassed by those folks, and so they're not going to support them.
I just hope this is their last time around because
Yeah.
we need change in D.C. That idea of the swamp creatures just the other day tried to get into this prison. It's like you swamp
Yeah.
creatures just stay behind your desk and
Yeah.
legislate, but I don't see anything getting done.
No, it's
So-
going to be up to the Republicans and the majorities to make things
And
happen.
some independents. So
Yeah,
let's
okay.
come out there
Some
and get those
Good,
independents
good.
in.
Well, good luck in your campaign.
I'm
and
still-
we're looking forward to hearing how all that goes. And now
Sit
we're out of
down.
time. It's going
Oh,
quickly. So,
shucks.
Greg, thank you very much again for coming
Pleasure.
in. I really appreciate it. I appreciate your insights and your following on some of these things. So
Well, you got to keep your ear to the tracks so you know which way the train's coming from. So it don't
that's
run
the
you
truth.
over.
That's the truth.
Thank you,
Thanks
sir.
very much for coming in. And folks, I want to thank you for tuning in too. My name is David Schoneman. You're watching Perspectives. I'm here with Greg Faith, and we're once again talking about how Trump is doing, some of the effects, the Trump effect of his second term, now more than 100 days into it, and we're seeing some of the benefits, and I hope you're seeing some of the benefits too. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.